Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into an absolutely gripping narrative where ancient horror totally collides with modern research, all centered around the supposedly cursed village of Berhampur. I'm so thrilled to take you on this journey today. We're going to look at a fascinating piece of folklore that's terrified a community for 400 years. But here's the twist. We are going to examine it through the lens of an objective skeptic. We have to ask, how much of this is actually supernatural and how much can be explained away by psychology, biology, and just the raw sheer power of human belief? All right, let's dive right in and unpack this mystery. So picture this. We're starting 400 years ago. A terrifying rhythmic chant is echoing through a pitch-black forest, announcing the arrival of a deadly folklore entity. Imagine being completely alone in the woods. The ambient noise drops to zero, and you just hear this heavy bum bum bosh. Now, from an objective skeptic standpoint, rhythmic chanting in a dense forest can severely distort a person's sense of direction. The sound waves literally bounce off the trees, which triggers this deep, primal panic response in the human brain. It's honestly an incredibly effective psychological weapon. Let's quickly define the core threat of this legend. They're called the Nishir Malo. According to the lore, a young man named Madan tragically crossed paths with this supernatural force on a Saturday night. Now, glowing red eyes in the dark woods, terrifying, right? But to a skeptic, this strongly points to the reflection of a light source, like a lantern, bouncing off the tapetum lucidum. That's just the reflective layer in the eyes of most nocturnal animals. But, in the highly heightened state of 17th century paranoia, that totally normal biological reality easily morphs into a nightmare of four terrifying men carrying a coffin. Right before Madan left, his father gave him a really strict survival protocol. And I love this because it brilliantly illustrates how early communities created these rigid, almost ritualistic rules to govern their fear of the unknown. Hide, don't look, wait it out. These are textbook isolation tactics designed to prevent panic-induced hysteria. Think about it. If you don't look, your own imagination fills in the blanks, which ensures the legend of the Nishir Molo stays terrifying, unquestioned, and completely unseen. Unfortunately for Madden, he failed to follow those rules. He peeked out just as he thought he was safe, and, well, it led to his horrific demise. He was found the next morning by his dad and another villager, and his face was literally frozen in terror. While the local folklore insists the Nishimolo sucked his soul out, modern medicine gives us a much more grounded, objective explanation. He likely suffered a massive, fatal cardiac arrest triggered by acute, profound fear. It's a phenomenon sometimes called the nocebo effect, where absolute belief in a curse literally scares a person to death. All right, let's fast forward to the modern quest, moving from folklore straight into the laboratory. Over in Delhi, we meet two researchers who literally could not be more different. First, there's Meghna, who's suddenly plagued by these vivid nightmares of a dark forest, a giant bird, and a tree dripping some mysterious liquid. On the flip side, we have Ishita. She is a fiercely pragmatic lab researcher under massive pressure to develop an antidote. Ishita is absolutely not looking for ghosts. She's just mining old folklore texts for forgotten botanical compounds. Now, Meghna's dreams? They could simply be the result of extreme workplace stress and subconscious anxiety bubbling up, but as we'll see, they're about to align perfectly with Ishita's empirical research. So, the crucial focal point here is what they're actually looking for, the Mrityunjay Amrit. Ishita uncovers a text describing this mythical green liquid, and astonishingly, the illustration in the book perfectly matches the bleeding tree from Meghna's nightmares. Now, to a skeptic, this so-called nectar of immortality sounds exactly like a rare, naturally occurring botanical sap, one that probably just reacts to specific atmospheric conditions. Maybe it bleeds more profusely during the tidal shifts of a full moon. It's biology, wrapped up in mythology. Let's map this timeline out real quick, just see how fast these two arrows converge. 4 centuries ago, modern dies. Fast forward to just a normal morning in Delhi, and Ishita finds the text. Within just 5 hours, completely fueled by scientific curiosity and, okay, maybe a little bit of fate, the girls jump on a bus and arrive straight at the gates of Berhampur. And that brings us to their arrival in cursed Berhampur, the exact moment these two worlds violently collide. Man, as soon as they step through those village gates, the modern, rational world of our researchers slams into the ancient, unexplainable forces of the village. The environment immediately reacts to them. A sudden severe storm hits, the temperature drastically drops, and a temple lamp just completely blows out the second they reach the village headman's house. The local priest immediately starts warning of bad omens. But let's pause and look at this objectively. We're talking about a sudden microclimate shift, right? A rapid drop in barometric pressure causes a storm, and a strong gust of wind blows out a localized flame. It's a perfectly natural meteorological event, but to a community primed for centuries to expect curses, it is instant confirmation bias. To investigate safely, the girls play it really smart. They feed the village headman a clever cover story about conducting an academic study just to secure some lodging. Obviously, their true objective is that botanical anomaly out in the jungle. But their very first move, they somehow convince the headman's son, Anuj, to sneak them into King Surajban's abandoned 400-year-old palace at midnight. Why start there? Because honestly, you can't decode the folklore without digging into the history of the rulers who enforced it. Now for the main event. Midnight in Birampur, a really intense dual climax.
So, two terrifying events are about to pop off simultaneously at exactly midnight. This is the classic witching hour, by the way, a time when the human circadian rhythm drops our alertness and massively heightens our susceptibility to suggestion and fear. In the palace, Meghna gets hit with severe déjà vu, which is a totally normal neurological glitch, especially in high-stress environments. They hear heavy footsteps, but come on, in a 400-year-old stone structure during a windstorm, that's a classic acoustic draft effect. Then, a jammed door bursts open, likely due to the pressure differential of the storm outside. Meanwhile, out in the woods, two local gamblers hear the chanting. The Nishirwalo appear, and that legendary, cursed coffin finally opens.
The coffin opened, and their scream echoed through the entire village. This is the absolute peak of our explainer. The gamblers witness something out there that is so horrific, it jolts the entire panicked village awake. But from a skeptic's standpoint, we know that sound travels incredibly far at night when the ambient noise drops. A single echoing scream of genuine terror from the woods is more than enough to trigger mass panic and mass hysteria across a population that genuinely already believes they're living under a curse. Which leaves us with these ultimate thrilling questions to take away today. What exactly was unleashed from that coffin? Was it a supernatural entity, an ancient biological hazard, or just something else entirely? And why on earth did a totally rational researcher from Delhi experience such intense déjà vu in a palace she's literally never visited? Even the most hardened objective skeptic has to admit, some puzzles demand a much deeper look. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and never stop looking for the truth behind the terrifying. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.